Here's our sample workflow with the actions built in but no conditions. So the actions, just to give you a broad brush here, are when the form is submitted, we're going to email the submitter. If you want to know how to do that this second, go check out the movie called Emailing a Form Submitter. Then what we're going to do is we're going to email the area vice president and wait for them to make a decision. We're going to email the finance VP and wait, and the HR VP and wait. But we're waiting for something so that we can make a decision. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a condition here to the area VP approval. And that condition is actually going to go take a look at the answer that that VP provided. So we're going to say if current item equals value, and we're going to say if the VP says yes, well, we just keep going. So what we want to know is what happens when they say no. Because normally, if we didn't add a single condition to this workflow, it would happily go on, emailing, waiting, emailing, waiting, emailing, waiting. We need to actually jump in and say, well, depending on what happens after the wait, we're going to do something different. So if the VP says, nope, I can't approve this hire, we then want to take two actions. One action is we want to send an email to the current submitter, and the other action is that we want to stop the workflow because we're done. So I'm going to go ahead in this condition and add an action, and we're going to send an email to the current submitter, and then we are going to stop the workflow. Notice that both of these are indented under the if. If by chance I put this in the wrong place, I'll get a different outcome. What this says right now is, if it equals no, email the user, stop the workflow. Then, if it equals not no, yes, go ahead and skip these two actions. If this action were outside of the if, outside of the conditional, notice when I point to the conditional, there's a box around it. This workflow would always stop. The VP of Finance would never get a single email because the workflow would halt at this point. It's not part of the condition, it's just an action. So you want to be careful. It's really easy to put actions or conditions in not quite the right place. So just point to the condition. Everything that's boxed will be done if that condition is true. In this case, if the VP says, nope, we're not going to hire that person. So we're going to stop the workflow and log a message. We'd have the same thing here for the finance VP. After the date was changed, so the VP's gone in and they've said, as of this date, I've checked or not checked that box, then we can add a condition and say, if the finance VP says no, then we want to email some users, and we want to stop the workflow. And if the HR VP says no, which would only happen if everybody has said yes up until now, because any no is stopping the workflow at that particular level, then what we're going to do is we're going to add a condition that says if the VP of HR's yes-no field equals no, click here in the condition, then we're going to send an email, and we're going to stop the workflow. Now we're actually missing a step down here, what happens if everybody approves. So there would be another step that says email HR to create the position. And I might just choose to do email, create the position. And what we do here is we just go in, we'd send an email. I don't need to put a stop on the workflow at the very end because when I fall out of the very last step in the workflow, it stops automatically. And it marks itself as complete. So I'm only adding these stop the workflows for all of the places before this that it was possible that someone said no. So that's how you create conditions. Just go into the step where you want to add the condition, make sure that you're in the right place. In this case, after we've sent the email and we've waited, then the condition kicks in. Some steps will begin with a condition. But in any event, it's really great to just be able to put all this together and say, okay, this is what's going to happen, and then talk your way through it. I'm emailing the vice president. I'm waiting for the date in the form to be filled in. If it's filled in, then if they say no, this is who I need to let know that they're not going to get the new hire. Stop the workflow, log the message. But if it equals yes, I'll fall through to the next step of the workflow. This is how conditions work. You can put as many of these together as you need to. So you can create conditions that cover more than simply yes, no, that cover possibility 1, 2, 3, and 4. Or a workflow that says, well, if this is true, then check to see if that's true as well. That would be an if inside of an if. You just throw another condition in right here in the same way. Notice an if inside of an if, one condition nested in another. If you can manage the if statements, for example, in Excel, they work exactly the same way here. If you've used this kind of logic when you're working with Access or anything else, I find that if you're new to this, reading these through very intentionally and perhaps with your office door shut to read them aloud is a really great way to actually think about what you're doing and what it means. I'm going to go ahead and delete that extra condition. This is looking real good. So we're going to go ahead and save this workflow. We're done with it for right now.